Hello and welcome back to Let's Play James Fighter's Anthology. Over the past couple of days we've been doing a lot of preparation for a marine invasion of Crimea, so let's see if that pays off today.
The ground war commences today. Marine battalions will soon be attempting to secure 2 beachheads on the Crimean Peninsula. At the same time, coalition forces in Poland will meet the Russian army head-on in western Ukraine. We will be supporting both fronts as the war continues. For the moment, however, we will be putting all of our offensive weight behind the amphibious landing.
Today you'll be flying a cap, providing protection against Russian interdiction strikes on the Marines. You're scheduled to take off at 0600 hours, which should bring you over Sevastopol just as the Marines hit the beaches. The Russians won't be surprised, so expect heavy opposition from above and below.
Alright, so we can finally begin the liberation of Ukraine. Air Shield, USS Eisenhower, CVN 69. Date May 31st, local time 0630 hours. Weather clear. Situation: Marine amphibious landing craft are currently off the coast of the Crimean Peninsula. Marines will be hitting the beaches shortly. Mission objective: fly top cover and protect the landing craft until you're relieved by a pair of F-14s. Order of battle: recommended aircraft F-14B. Recommended weapons: AIM-9M, AIM-54, AIM-120. Threat suppression data: ground opposition, none. Air opposition: possible MiG-29s and Su-27s. We have one good wingman that will be landing on the western shores of the Crimea, as we can see here. So we'll be flying combat air patrol around the landing area and then heading back down south to where the carrier is stationed in the middle of the Black Sea. So we'll take our trusty Tomcat for this, and I'm expecting more tactical aircraft than strategic bombers, but just on the off chance there are strategic bombers, we'll take some Phoenix missiles, and with that we'll fly. We have a radar threat, so we'll throw on our jammers, and it looks like we got some guys pretty close to us already, so... And we can actually visually see the Blackjack from over 30 miles out, so it's a pretty large aircraft. So we'll stick our wingman on that. We'll take care of the fighter. And hopefully that'll be enough to sink that bomber. So the flanker's locking onto us. We got a hit on the Blackjack. And our wingman finished off the Blackjack. So we're just now starting to get a lock on the flanker here. I don't want my wingman to waste his Phoenix missile on it, so what we're going to do here is we're going to stick him on the other Blackjack.
Engaging. Apex inbound, drop down. Apex inbound, drop down. He's at 12 o'clock.
And he's really unloading into us.
Apex inbound, drop down. Taking a shot.
So, now it's time to answer in kind.
Apex inbound, drop down.
Yeah, Sparrow's bad.
He's at 12 o'clock.
And I think that other one is too. And there's actually 2 flankers here, so we gotta play this careful. Alright, that's one flanker down. Let's see, the other one's trying to get a lock on us. Wingman is firing on the other Blackjack. Alright. Now we got a lock on this guy. What do we got? We have Sidewinders up, that's good. And it looks like he's going to try and climb to infinity like the AI loves to do, so let's see if we can use a Sidewinder to discourage him from doing that. two good flankers down. Let's try to recover some speed here, and we'll go help our wingman out now.
Oh, yeah.
Blackjack's still inbound. We do have a Phoenix missile left. We just entered prime range for it, so we'll throw that out there. And we got 2 Sparrows left. So let's dive. We can pick up some speed real easy that way. Looks like the flankers are still focused on us and not our wingmen, so that's good. And that's the Blackjack gone. We're going to have our wingmen start on those flankers then. And it sounds like that was the last Blackjack too. So if our wingmen can distract this guy, that can let us get off a good Sparrow missile, hopefully. Alright, our wingman's got one.
Flanker, attack standard, you're 2 o'clock. Engaging, Apex inbound, drop tap, Fox 2. Taking a shot.
We'll throw out an early Sparrow just to distract this guy from hitting our wingman. And once we hit maximum hit probability, we'll throw out another one.
Apex inbound, drop tap. He's taking damage.
There we go.
Flash 1 bandit.
And we got him. So, good teamwork with our wingman there. Oops. I want to turn that off because I don't want the Sparrow homing in on our wingman by accident.
Disengage.
Alright, should be past him now. So, let's see where this landing is. We see there's a ton of man-portable SAMs here, so they're clearly expecting some close air support for the Marines.
7 miles.
Ah, here they are.
Tighten up.
So let's give them a good show. And we hear the man-portable SAMs are taking a couple of shots at us. That's okay. I don't think they'll be able to hit us. And they're pretty easy to decoy with flares too, so... See, they got tanks coming off the landing craft. And here you go, boys. Welcome to Crimea. So we've accomplished our mission, and with that, we're going to go home.
Bearing 12. Climb to Angel 5.
We shouldn't need our jammers anymore. We see we have a pair of AWACSs here, so we'll link up to that just in case. And with that, since we have a ways to go, I'll continue my trend of talking about the military equipment and vehicles that are featured in this game with some information on the Tomcat, which, as I mentioned in the first Ukraine episode, is my favorite jet fighter of all time. Now, the F-14 was derived from another program in the 70s. The Secretary of Defense at the time was Robert McNamara, if I'm recalling that correctly. And I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, too. And he was big on inter-service cooperation and standardizing things between the services. So, for example, I think the Air Force adopted the F-4 as part of his recommendations. I think the Air Force also adopted the A-7 as a part of his recommendations. And in exchange, when the Navy wanted a new interceptor for their fleet to replace the Phantom, he encouraged them to try to work with a derivative of the F-111 that the Air Force had developed. And this derivative, here's the Tomcats that are going to replace us. This derivative was to be known as the F-111B. Now, the F-111 was a supersonic, low-level tactical interdiction strike aircraft meant to penetrate air defenses. So, Grumman and Hughes started working on it. Grumman put some Pratt & Whitney TF-30 engines in, and Hughes developed the AN/AWG-9 radar and the Phoenix missile for it, but the F-111B had some problems. It was grossly overweight for carrier operations and was generally underpowered. So the Navy canceled that whole thing, and they started a new project, and they leveraged some of the technology that was developed for it. The Pratt & Whitney TF-30s, the AWG-9 radar, the Phoenix missiles, the swing wing technology, and so Grumman came up with the F-14A, which entered service in 1973 aboard the USS Enterprise, and in 1974 saw its first deployment with Operation Frequent Wind, where it was protecting evacuation aircraft that were evacuating South Vietnam in the face of invasion from the north. Now, the TF-30s that powered the original Tomcats were pretty unreliable, and they were also underpowered, most notably at high angles of attack. There was a tendency for compressor stall to happen, so 28% of all F-14 accidents are attributed to those TF-30 engines. Now, the Tomcat didn't see much action in U.S. service. The only real instances of combat was on the 19th of August, 1981, there was the first Gulf of Sidra action in which two F-14A Tomcats engaged two Libyan SU-22s, and they downed them with Sparrow and Sidewinder missiles, I believe. And then again in 4th of January of 1989 was the second Gulf of Sidra action, where they faced two MiG-23s, and again they downed them with Sparrow missiles this time, I believe exclusively. But they may have used Sidewinders too. Now, there was only one export customer for the F-14 Tomcat, and that was Iran. They ordered 80 Tomcats, but with the overthrow of the Shah, which was their king, in 79, only 79 Tomcats were delivered. The Navy took delivery of the 80th Tomcat, and that's, in Iranian service, is where the Tomcat saw most of its action. Some people believe that they scored up to 160 air-to-air combat kills in Iranian service, with only 12 to 16 lost, and of those, only 6 to 8 are attributed to enemy action. So it has a fairly impressive kill ratio, and especially if you consider the circumstances where the Iranians had no U.S. support for, getting parts, spares, weapons for the Tomcats. They
4 miles. Go right.
And I believe as they were being evacuated from Iran, Navy crews that were sent to help them learn how to use the Tomcat, learn maintenance and stuff, actually sabotaged the Tomcats too. So taking in the light all of that, that's a very impressive performance record. Now, in U.S. service in 1987, the F-14B was developed. Now, this replaced the original Pratt & Whitney TF-30s with GE F-110, GE 400 turbofans, which greatly improved the thrust and reliability that Tomcat had. And despite this, they never increased its rated speed from around Mach 2. Give or take. Which they probably could have, since I believe the F-14B modifications didn't add too much weight.
Lower.
And we got a fair landing, we'll take that. That was probably one of our better approaches, since we didn't have to punch afterburners to gain altitude real quickly because we were dropping too fast or something like that. We'll park ourselves in our favorite spot. Alright, and there are also some avionics improvements with the F-14B upgrade, and in 1991 the F-14D variant was created. Now this included a glass cockpit, an upgrade to the AWG-9, the AN APG-71, avionics upgrades, a defensive jammer upgrade, and an infrared search and track sensor, which actually, since the end of the Cold War, has been somewhat of a rarity on U.S. fighters until recently. And in 1994, some B and D models of the fleet were given ground attack upgrades, including the compatibility with the Lantern pod. And these Tomcats were nicknamed the Bombcat in light of this. Now, only 55D models were made because Cheney, who was Defense Secretary in the early 90s, I think, he has a grudge against the Tomcat for whatever reason. A lot of people think he might have been on Boeing's payroll secretly, since he advocated the Super Hornet instead of the Tomcat. And so as a compromise, some of those 55D models, I believe of the 55, only some were new build and some were converted from B models. Now, with the end of the Cold War, the threat of large Soviet bomber formations attacking U.S. carrier groups diminished, and no other country in the world had a bomber fleet comparable to that. I mean, China kinda does, but they were nowhere near as capable as Soviet bombers. So, in light of budget cuts, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq that were mostly air-to-ground operations, the F-14 was retired on the 22nd of September 2006. That was when its last flight was. And in 2007, the Navy shredded most of the remaining Tomcats to keep parts from Iran. Again, another Cheney thing. Some people believe this was simply to prevent any return of the Tomcat into U.S. service because they didn't want competition for the Super Hornet, but only those involved will know for sure. In any case, the F-14 is all but gone. Even the ones delivered to Iran, only around 20 or so are believed to be serviceable. Of those, a lot have jury-rigged parts and avionics, with Russian, Chinese, and domestic Iranian electronics integrated into them. They no longer have any Phoenix missiles. Instead, they use a modified reverse-engineered variant of the what was it? It was another Hughes missile, Hawk. The Hawk surface-to-air missile. They've modified those to be used on their Tomcats, which is kind of impressive if you think about it. But, so those are the last remaining Tomcats in service in the world. There's a couple dozen that are stationed around the U.S. as, like, memorials or, museum pieces. And actually, looking on Google Earth satellite imagery, I found that there are around 6 Tomcats that still have not been shredded in the Boneyard, which is named for the aircraft storage and maintenance facility in Arizona that's maintained by the U.S. Air Force on behalf of the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines. So, I'm not quite sure why they haven't shredded those last Tomcats. Maybe it's just to give, the Navy something to work with if they wanted to develop a replacement, which I do hope that the FA-XX program does yield a suitable replacement for the Tomcat, especially now that we're seeing a resurgent Russia as well as a China on the uprise. The threat of bombers is becoming very tangible and very real once again, and threatening to U.S. carrier battle groups. So, that's it for this brief history of the Tomcat. And that's it for this mission too, so we can probably end it here. Debrief. USS Eisenhower, CVN 69. Date May 31st. Mission Air Shield. Resolution Success. An amphibious landing would end in disaster without air cover. Excellent work protecting the beachhead and the Marines. So we destroyed the 2 targets. We took no damage. Our wingman took 27% damage. We had a landing grade of 50%. Wingman had a landing grade of 40%. We destroyed 3 flankers and 1 blackjack. Our wingman had 1 flanker and 1 blackjack. There were 8 air-to-air launches on us. Or no, sorry, we launched 8 air-to-air missiles. A bit over half of those hit. The Sparrows kind of failed, and a couple were spoofed. Our wingman launched half as much and got only 50% hits because of failures and spoofing. We missed a lot with our gun. Our wingman had about 1/3 hits. There were 11 air-to-air missile launches on us. We spoofed most of them. We jammed one just failed. And then there was one on our wingman which hit. I'm guessing that's an AA-11 Archer, given how little damage it did. There was one SAM launched on us that was that shoulder-mounted SAM, and that failed. I think it hit the hitbox or something and just blew up, or maybe it just blew up on its own. So we're going to repair our Tomcat, do the maintenance on that, and repair our Hornet. So now we have a fully operational fleet once again. Wow. I don't remember seeing him there before. This is actually, in the USNF 97 version of this campaign, you had the option of flying the F-22N Raptor, which was, in essence, a navalized version of the F-22. It was discussed at, right at the end of the Cold War, early 90s. The Navy was running 5th-gen fighter project as a replacement for the Tomcat called the Navy Advanced Tactical Fighter Project, I think. And it was basically the counterpart to the Air Force's Advanced Tactical Fighter Project, which yielded the F-22. And there were one of the possibilities was just a straight-up navalized version of the Raptor, which is what this represents. Another one has been dubbed the F-24 Hellcat II, would have been a navalized swing-wing version of the Raptor. Imagine how sexy that would have been. And as part of this project, they're also developing the AIM-152 Advanced Air-to-Air Missile, which would have been a replacement for the Phoenix with greater range. And they were going to have rear-facing radars, too, that they would mount on the aircraft, so that way the Tomcats or, the NATF fighters could fly out towards the bombers, launch their missiles, turn around, and still guide them because of the rear-facing radars. But along with the NATF program, that was canceled as well as a cost-saving measure, so none of that ever came to fruition. Another low-cost contender to that would have been upgraded versions of the F-14 Tomcat, including the F-14E Advanced Super Tomcat 21 project, which would have seen basically a lot of the upgrades that went into the Hornet, or the Super Hornet compared to the Hornet. So ASA radar, an expanded avionics suit, extensive air-to-ground capability, possibly new engines, stealth reduction features, the works. And they had lower cost derivatives of that, but again, those were all canceled because they were seen as too expensive, unfortunately. So I'm not going to do anything special with the F-22, and we're going to get a chance to fly the F-22A later. And as far as the game's concerned, they're exactly the same, except the N has a tail hook, the A does not. That's really the only difference. So with that, that's a wrap to this episode. So I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more. We should be providing close air support to the Marines now for a while, so look forward to that, and we'll see you then.